Today we are reviewing one of the newest indie games on the Switch, Splasher. Splasher at first glance looks like it takes a lot of inspiration from Splatoon or Portal 2, but it's so much more than that. The game is an action platformer by the Splash team. Full disclosure, the team sent us a copy of the game for review purposes. The Splash team is comprised of former Ubisoft talent who worked on Rayman Origins and Rayman Legends. So should you include Splasher in your Switch collection, or is it as fun as watching paint dry? This is PushDustIn from Source Gaming, and let's get started with this review. In the opening scene, the hero of the story discovers that the Doctor, the leader of INKredible, is using the INKredible employees to conduct experiments on them and turn them into monsters. The hero decides to stand up to the Doctor and begins chasing him. The game's story is very limited. There aren't very many cutscenes in the game, and the story is told without any real dialogue. It doesn't really feel like Splasher could be particularly enhanced with a story though. Therefore, it kinda takes a backseat to the main focus of Splasher, the gameplay. The gameplay is the main draw of Splasher and where the game excels. The levels are extremely well crafted. While the game does encourage players to speedrun it, it will take several hours to complete it, especially if players are aiming to rescue all of the INKredible employees. 7 INKredible employees are hidden in the game's 22 levels, making for a total of 154 employees that need to be saved. Rescuing them will require players to perform an extra task or complete a challenge room. The last INKredible employee in each level, the one that makes the exclamation point in Splash, requires players to completely master the level by cleaning up all the goo, defeating all the enemies, and rescuing the other employees. Some of these are very difficult, but I felt very satisfied once I was able to complete a particularly challenging part. The game doesn't feel like it's unfair at all. Speaking of which, Splasher strikes an excellent balance between hardcore and casual play. The levels are designed with enough checkpoints in them, so casual players can definitely finish the game and take their time collecting the employees. However, hardcore players can really master the level. Over the course of the game, players will have access to 3 different types of paints and sprays. The first one is water and is used by pressing the Y button. The second ability gained is a type of pink sticky paint that is shot using the A button. The last ability is a yellow bounce paint that can be used by pressing the X button. The controls are fine-tuned and generally not a problem. There are some parts where it is a problem, and that's when players need to run and gun. These sections can be a bit difficult as running and the direction to shoot are tied to the same buttons. I had one section in particular where I was trying to shoot up to move a block, shoot down to clean up mess, and move right all at the same time. Eventually I gave up trying to clean the mess and just moved on. The game does an excellent job of introducing new mechanics. In order to move around the levels, players will need to move around a hub world. The hub world is well designed. Players will never be lost as there is an arrow which indicates where the next level is, and levels that are already complete can be accessed in the menu. The area right outside the level almost always directly correspond to what kind of level it will be. Did you bounce your way to the level? The level is probably going to be focused on bouncing. It's just another detail that really ties the overall package of Splasher together. Splasher's art style reminds me a lot of Flash cartoons from the late 90s, 2000s. It's not particularly bad and one that I'm actually very nostalgic for, but I think it will turn some people off. The game has some humor to it with quirky animations, such as the Doctor throwing employees around, or the receptionist in the game's hub world. The game's music is also good. There are no annoying sounds which make me want to turn off the volume. The game does an excellent job of telegraphing what the player needs to do. Sometimes walls that players will need to grab will have a little bit of pink paint on them, showing that the player should climb up. Players won't get lost that often in Splasher, but it's not a game that holds their hand either. Splasher is a game that's very easy to pick up but challenging to master. The game does an excellent job of keeping track of how much is completed and encourages players to try out the speedrun modes. There are a lot here for players even after finishing the game's 22 levels. Splasher is $14.99 US on the Nintendo eShop and is well worth the price of admission. It's a very solid experience with interesting levels and a style to keep players engaged. Splasher was one of my favorite games that I tried out at Tokyo Game Show, and I'm very glad to have this opportunity to review it. The game is incredibly well polished. The game is already out on Steam, and some players have already speedrun the entire game in under an hour. However, in order to complete the whole game, Splasher will take players 5 to 10 hours, especially if they try to collect everything and actually get good at the game. I guess you could say that Splasher is INKredible. I give Splasher a 4.75 out of 5. Thank you guys so much for listening to this review. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Leave a like on this video and remember to subscribe to see more content like this straight from the source. Check out the description for all the social media links. This is PushDustIn from Source Gaming, signing off.